copyright, and she is actually an attorney, so
recovering attorney.
You can ask other questions to her for final authority. Okay, I think we'll go ahead and get started. So, I will mention that we do have a person in the room putting this on a camcorder. If you have an issue, I don't think any of your faces appear. Maybe, I don't know, if you object to having your question recorded, we can turn it off before the question and answer period.
Definitely. No faces will appear, and we can turn it off for the question session if people would prefer. That's perfectly all right. So.
All right, thank you. All right, well, I thought I would just start off with kind of this is a heavy topic sometimes, and I thought I'd start off with a light thing. We were trying to take the train here to Missouri, and the train, the Union Pacific, broke down ahead of us on the tracks, and so we couldn't take the train. They all put us on a chartered bus to get here, and as you can see, it was quite a ride, and the guy behind us is snoring away, and there was a baby crying in the back of the bus, and you know, it was a fun trip. Brent Husher and I had a good time. This happens to be on Facebook, so it's a great example of photography on Facebook, and we're going to talk about that in a little while. So, point is, we made it. Now, I'm looking at this PowerPoint here, and at the top of my screen, it seems to indicate this may not be a totally legal copy of PowerPoint, which is ironic. Well, we'll see. I hope it works for us today, considering the topic. We're not quite sure what this message is up here. So. All right, we're talking about movies and social media today, and I guess the common theme would be usually talk about textual matter. We're going to talk about non-textual matter today. So with movies, I'm going to start with movies. Bonnie's going to cover more social media. With movies, we're talking about a concept of public performance, and what do we mean by public performance? So I've gone to the copyright code, the law, and pulled out their definition of what a public performance is. So we're talking about perform. Those words are important. Perform and display. Okay? Again, not textual information. And what happens with this, you're transmitting or communicating a performance or a display, and it tells you how you're doing that in separate places, or it might be in the same place. And it might be at the same time to everybody or at different times. So they've got the continuum of time covered. Okay, let's review basic rights of the creator, just so we're all on the same page here. It's a good foundation for our talk. And I think you all know these. There are about 6 rights. To reproduce a copyrighted work, the creator, that of course is the creator's right. To prepare a derivative work, this one tricks people a lot. What is a derivative work? It's taking the existing work and making a different form of it. It could be an abridgment, a translation, the movie version of a novel. So you kind of recreated it in a different form. And this is the one thing that people love to do. They love to take other people's work and do something to it, tweak it, rework it. But this is the thing that gets us into trouble, making those derivative works. Thirdly, distribute copies. So making copies is the right of the creator. I have not made copies of my handout for you because there's copyrighted material on here. And if I gave you copies, I would be distributing. That's not my privilege to do that. Okay? We will put the PowerPoint up, but it will not have the copyrighted images. Okay, and there's more. Other rights are for literary, musical, and dramatic works. I've just highlighted the more important things that we typically deal with. To perform those works, again, is the privilege of the copyright holder. And for things that you view, pictorial, graphic, images, photographs, things like that, to display those is, again, the right of the copyright holder. And then they've got a special little privilege for sound recordings for digital audio transmission. We're not going to get into that today. Now, what if you are not the creator of the work? What can you do with a copyrighted work? Okay, we can view it personally. We can view it with an a small circle of friends, so if you want to watch a DVD at home and invite friends over, that's okay. View it publicly under an exemption. You can look for an exemption in the law. Okay? Something that says it's okay for you to do this activity, or you can go get permission. So those are your choices. So maybe a decision tree is helpful here. First question you want to ask yourself, is this a copyrighted work? Because if it's not, end of story. Okay, no problem. So get that established first. Is the item licensed, maybe by a department or a school, or you're in a business? Maybe a business has licensed some software, whatever, videos, training videos. Or does my library have a license to this? Maybe it's films on demand, something like that. So if it's licensed and the copyright is covered, good, you're good to go, no problem, okay? But if not, is there a legal exemption that would cover your use, okay? And then lastly I've got, is my purpose of fair use? Fair use is a legal exemption. But I save it last because it's a difficult exemption. It's not a black and white exemption like other statutory exemptions are. There's more room for error, more wiggle room. If none of these work, then you need to go get permission. Okay? It's pretty easy. Okay. So what legal exemptions do we have? Well, depends who you are. Section 110(1) of the copyright law has an exception for performance and display. And again, we're not really talking about text. We don't typically display a text. Can you display a text? Yes, but we don't typically. We read a text, okay? We display images. So here it says, if you're in a face-to-face teaching activity of a nonprofit educational institution, in a classroom or similar place devoted to instruction, and I'm going to skip over it, I don't want to get too worried. The performance or display has to be a lawfully made copy. So I've just underlined the really key elements here. Then you have an exemption to infringe. It's not an infringement. Okay, let's look at the statutory exemption for fair use. This is a different section of the law. It's section 107 as opposed to 110. And this one, you probably know by heart, our students will by the end of the semester. What is your purpose or use of the material? Are you a commercial entity or a nonprofit? Nature of the work, is it more factual or is it creative? Is it a work of fiction? Is it an image that's created by an artist? Would be a very creative work. Is it a short story? Would be a creative work. Okay. How much are you using? Are you using a small portion or the entire thing? Makes a big difference. And is there a market effect? Are you taking away dollars from the copyright holder? Is there very often you see the reference, is there an exploitable market? It sounds bad, but it just means, is there a market for this material? If there's no market, then that's in your favor. Okay. I've also linked to the fair use checklist, which is a checklist that's commonly used. It was first developed at Columbia University by Ken Cruz, and you can find it on his website. What Cindy Thompson and I did last year after the Georgia State case, and in the Georgia State case, the judge made one comment that the fair use checklist didn't provide enough guidance to faculty. So Cindy and I went through and we annotated the checklist to provide that missing guidance. You feel free to use the checklist. There's a link to it there, and these slides will be available to you. Now, but what if you're not in a classroom or a similar place? Well, then you've got licensing agencies, and everybody, certainly in St. Louis, and everybody who's been to this conference certainly now knows that SWANK is out there. They were exhibiting, and they have lots of material about licensing, so if you're in a public library and you're not in a teaching activity, then you probably need to get licenses for what you're doing. A lot of you know this already. Swank also has a service for universities and colleges, a digital campus. So if you are teaching online and you need a license for that, you can get your license through them. They also have, let's say there's a student event in the student center, or an events club wants to show a movie. Probably Swank is the place you want to go to get that license, because it's probably not a teaching activity. And Mobius apparently has just done a deal with Swank, so you get 10% discount. I don't want to take the whole time talking about Swank, but they have a lot of cool features. If you are teaching, a lot of cool features where you can mark movies and students can embed discussion right there in the movie area, and really have catered to the educational market. Swank does not represent all popular studios. They do not represent Fox. Okay, you have to go to Criterion to get Fox. So depends who published the movie. They do the big ones, MGM, things like that. But there are some other options here that I've given you. So if you can't find the license agency, representing the right studio, try some of these others. If you may get into a situation where a movie we've had this happen numerous times, where it's a foreign publisher, seem to have gone out of business, there's just no way to contact them, you're kind of up the creek, you need to go back and do a fair use analysis. Okay, let's test your knowledge. Is it okay to show an entire DVD in a face-to-face class, from beginning to end? How many say yes? How many say no? Raise your hand. How many don't know? Okay, the most, okay. Yes, okay, it is, it's fine. Is it okay to
if
show...
you meet certain criteria though, right? I mean,
Yeah, we'll go back to that criteria in a minute, just to refresh you. Is it okay to show a rental movie in a face-to-face class? Rental. How many say yes? Some are blank.
Assuming the same criteria as before.
yeah.
Okay, how many say no? How many don't really know? Okay. As long as it's a lawfully made rental copy, yes, it's okay. Good. Going back again, some people said, well, it depends on the criteria. This is your criteria. Okay? We just looked at it a minute ago. There's nothing in there that says anything about you can't use a rental movie. Okay? It's pretty simple to understand. It's so simple, it's sometimes confusing. Is it okay to show Ice Age, Dawn of the Dinosaurs to middle school students for doing well on a test?
Are we talking legally or are we talking specularly?
You're going to test them on it afterwards.
Okay, so you're asking some good questions.
Yes.
You're asking good questions. Okay. No, well, maybe. This is most likely a situation where you are rewarding students, and the purpose sounds more like entertainment than teaching activity. But if you really have some teaching activity going on, okay.
Well, I was actually still thinking a little bit about the previous question, rental. And I was wondering, do some rental companies like, say, Netflix, Blockbuster, et cetera, do they have riders or conditions on their rental
They sure do,
contracts?
and anything that's electronic has some kind of a term associated. Our legal counsel at MU said that she felt that Netflix DVD was okay to show in a class. She was not happy with the streaming in a face-to-face class. That was her interpretation. I would advise you to talk to your own legal counsels wherever you work and see how they feel about it.
One of the criteria stated in the definition was that it's for a non-profit institution.
Right.
If a school is a for-profit, then does it?
Different story.
Okay.
Okay. And there's a lot of for-profits out there now, so it's an issue. One last question. Okay. This came up. Cindy, you're not allowed to. You're not allowed to answer this one. Is it okay to show a foreign film to high school students visiting your college campus for a foreign film festival? An instructor will be in the class to provide commentary and facilitate discussion. How many say yes? How many say no? How many don't know? Oh, so you're really okay with this. Most of you said yes, it's okay. Wow. Well, we struggled with this one because the minute you hear film festival, it sounds like, woo, whoopee, you know, this is going to be fun. This is a festival, you know, this is not a teaching activity. And we did struggle with this. It also begged the question, well, how do you define a student? Do they have to be your students, or can they be somebody else's students? How do you define a student? Do they have to be officially enrolled? What if they're paying money to your business school directly and not going through your registrar?
Does it make a difference if you charge for the festival?
Oh, yeah, this is not for, yeah, the condition here is we're not charging. Charging brings a different element. No, you can't do that, yeah.
This could be a high school field trip, and that's would be a teaching activity.
Yeah, well,
From the high school viewpoint.
I bounced this off some national legal experts and said, because we started getting into the weeds here about who are students, how you define a student. And going back to the simplicity of that face-to-face, this legal counsel that I talked to said, you know, they're students. It's a teaching activity. It's a nonprofit institution. They're in a classroom, similar place. And I thought it was okay, right? But you need to think this through and see what you're comfortable with, what your risk level is when you do these things.
And then what you find is, if it's a foreign film, whose copyright laws apply? Is it going to be U.S. copyright law applies, or is it going to be, you know, if it's, say, a film produced in, a DVD that was produced in England, or
Oh, now you really want to fix it. With distribution in the U.S., well, we have, you know, compatible copyright laws. Yeah.
Generally,
There's all kinds of, yeah, but good point.
You guess that
Yeah.
U.S. laws apply.
Right, good point. So all kinds of ways where you can scramble this and make it more complicated. Okay, I'm not going to tease you, I'm not going to get into online teaching. There are different rules that apply. Section 110(2) of the Copyright Act is the Teach Act. They have a link there with information, but we have some public librarians here. We don't need to really bore them with our problems in academia here. But it's a very different situation, and we also want to spend a lot of time on social media, so we're going to skip over this. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Bonnie.
Hey there. Okay, since we're taping this, I just want to state for the record that absolutely nothing that happens up here should be construed as legal advice. So, just want to make that perfectly clear. When it comes to social media, there are so many different platforms up there. As soon as I got these all arranged in a way that I like, it dawned on me that I had left off Flickr, and Vimeo's not up there. And so I started thinking, oh, I missed this one and I missed that one. So there's just so many, and they're popping up new ones every day. Copyright law obviously predates social media by a fair bit, but it still applies. And trying to make it apply is sometimes a very interesting situation. Sometimes people are worried, if I put my photos on this service, am I giving up my copyright? You need to check the terms of service for the individual platform that you're looking at. Generally, you're granting a license that allows them to use it in a variety of ways. Sometimes hoaxes will pop up pertaining to copyright, especially on Facebook. Have you ever seen the one, now that Facebook is a publicly traded company, they've got the right to your copyright. Unless you put this as your status, I decree under the statute of Rome that I have copyright. Yeah, that doesn't have any effect. That just annoys your friends. So, anyway, generally, problems that pertain in the copyright arena generally arise between users, between individuals, because the companies themselves are pretty clear on what their rights are, you know, what they are taking. Okay, so today I'm going to focus mostly on Facebook and YouTube. How many people here use Facebook? Oh, okay, a lot. Okay, how many of you saw this picture on Facebook last October? or anywhere in the, do you saw it?
Probably.
Huh?
Probably.
Okay. Well, I saw it a lot. This was my friend Melanie shared it from The Inquisitor, and it's supposedly the old guard standing at the tomb even through hurricanes. And I thought this was an interesting example of just how widespread something can be once it's out on social media. Melanie has about 400 friends. 39 of them shared this, passed it on. So I said, well, let's go back and look where she got it, from The Inquisitor. You know, it's their photo, right? They're the ones who posted it. They had almost 300,000 people like it, over 37,000 shares, one of whom was to Melanie, close to 8,000 comments. But here's the real deal. That photo is the old guard. That is not Hurricane Sandy. It was taken in September during regular unnamed rain. And the reason that it came to my attention so clearly is because the photographer is a friend of mine. Her husband is the commander of the Old Guard there at Arlington. And I had seen it when she put it on her Facebook in September. And so when it started coming up, George Takei used it as his background image for Veterans Day. So anyway, Karen's photo, her name's Karen Marker, and her photo literally went viral. I mean, it just went everywhere. And generally uncredited. You know, what happened here was the Inquisitor had downloaded it and then re-uploaded it. And probably not with any malicious intent. Probably not to say, this is our photo. But they're not giving the credit that was deserved. Some people think that if something is on social media, it's in the public domain. That is not true. There was a case in the past year where the London Evening Standard went to Twitter for photos of a helicopter crash in London. And they learned the hard way that they were not allowed to do that. Those photos were still copyright to the person who took them and put them on Twitter. But that doesn't mean that you have to be paranoid and not share anything. I mean, it's social media. It should be social. It is okay to do that which the platform allows you to do, because the platform has been designed in a way that this is what they've licensed the photos for. So share the photo, but share it from Karen's page, and then your friend shares it, and it's, you know, shared from Karen, and you share it, and then she's getting the glory. Okay, so when you want to talk about protecting your photos, do you know what EXIF data is? The metadata that goes with an image file. And it can be very detailed. Who took it? You can go in, you can set this stuff. You know, you're the author, you know, this was the date. It can give information like what the camera was, what the f-stop was. The problem is a lot of this, a lot of the different platforms, Facebook, Instagram, they strip off the EXIF data when you upload it. So if you go and you download a photo off of Facebook, it's not there. Now, the good part of that is also, if, say, it's a picture of your baby on her first birthday and the cake all over her face and it's in your living room, the GPS coordinates are also not there. And so, you know, it's kind of a safety feature. It doesn't have anything to do with copyright. So that's kind of a good news, bad news situation. So beyond trying to work with the EXIF data, you have watermarking. Now, this is what Karen puts on her images now. You can see the date, her name, and her email address. Makes it easier to contact her and say, hey, I'd really like to share your photo. One drawback to that type of watermarking is I could crop that out pretty easily and not have it there anymore. You can run a watermark through the image, but that kind of degrades the visual experience. There's also some data that suggests that watermarked images, they don't get shared as often or as much as non-watermarked. And it might be because maybe it's not as good an image with the watermark on it. But maybe it's because somebody thinks that person's litigious. They don't want to mess with that. If you do want a watermark, huh?
Well, I was just thinking, I know there are sneaky ways of encrypting text into JPEG and other pictures.
There are. Okay. With just regular visual watermarking, visible, like you see there, you can do it in Photoshop. There's an app called Marksta that's like $2 on the iPhone, the iStore. And you can create something like what Karen's got right there. But then you're right, there are sneaky ways. There's a company called Digimark that it's a subscription service that will embed a watermark that's not visible. And now they're working on one that's based on a Sudoku grid. And so they picture a Sudoku grid superimposed on that, and at each of those 81 spots, they scramble the pixels just a little bit. And it's imperceptible to the eye, but you can't crop that out. It's just peppered within the image. And so you're right. There are ways to do it, and then Digimark, that subscription service, will also track your images and report to you where they're popping up on the internet. Okay, so turning away from Facebook and looking at video. Oops, oh, there's my watermarking. Okay, so now we're going to go to YouTube. There's a whole lot of infringing material on YouTube. You can get whole movies, Broadway shows, TV shows, music videos, just all sorts of stuff. And then there's a lot of stuff that is created by individual users, but has some infringing element, whether it's music that was chosen to back a slideshow or pictures that were taken from, other sources. Did you have a question?
No, I'm just checking.
Oh, okay. It's common for people who create something to go on YouTube to try to disavow infringement, perhaps give attribution. Attribution does not negate copyright infringement. Just telling somebody, all rights to so-and-so doesn't do it. Have you seen notices like this? No copyright infringement intended for educational purposes only. Yeah. That doesn't work. Even if you use all caps. So these are the kind of statements that you quite frequently see if it's a student-generated project and they want to share it. So if you're working in a classroom environment, if you're having students share materials, you really want to educate them on what they can use, what they can't use, that they cannot infringe their little educational hearts out and then disavow it, and it just doesn't work. Also, at the higher grade levels in college, say, you might want to consider having like a copyright policy in your syllabus. Now, YouTube is kind of an interesting animal. They have this content ID match that is part of their platform. And just very basically, the way it works is that rights holders who want to can submit their material, and it populates a database that then, when somebody goes to upload something to YouTube, it gets matched against this database for a possible link, a possible match. And then if a match is found, the rights holder is notified, and they have three options. They can do nothing and allow the material to stand. The tracking information will go to their analytics. They'll continue to get information on number of hits and likes, that sort of thing. They can block it. They can choose to block the whole video, or if it's an audio situation, they might choose to just suppress the sound. This happened to my son in high school. He did a video for the Foreign Language Fest, and he used some popular song, and it got a hit. YouTube let the video stay, but there was no sound. Sometimes it could be blocked in one country and not blocked in another country. And then the third thing they can do, and this is where I think it's really clever, the rights holder can have the option to monetize it. YouTube, and if they choose this, YouTube can insert ads before or after or maybe on the same page, and then the rights holder gets a cut of the ad money, And you remember last year when the Gangnam Style videos were going crazy? Well, Psy opted to monetize rather than to try to smack those down and made a lot of money. I saw numbers ranging from close to 1 million to several million. Whereas if he had just chosen to take it down, take it down, take it down, I mean, you know, can anybody name another Psy song? You know, so
He has a new one out.
does it?
Yes, but he's popular in Korea.
Yes, but by monetizing it, you know, he took what could have been a negative, turned it into a positive for him. Then you also have the DMCA, the Digital Millennium Copyright Act. And this applies not just to YouTube, but all of these social media platforms. This is what allows them to do what they do. It's the safe harbor provision. They operate as a safe harbor. They don't make a judgment. When you upload your stuff, they don't watch it. They don't worry about whether you have the rights. Then, if somebody says, wait a minute, that's mine, they can file a takedown notice. And whether it's with YouTube or Facebook or Instagram or a blog, a website, you know, companies need to have an agent to accept takedown notices. If you put something up on your website and somebody wants to take it down, you know, there should be a person that they can contact to do that. So the way the takedown process works is somebody becomes aware that their material is used in what they think is an infringing fashion. They file a takedown notice with YouTube. YouTube takes it down. They don't look at it, they don't say, well, you know, I don't know, this could be a fair use, or, yeah, takes it down. And then they'll let you know, your video has been removed because of this takedown notice. But then let's say you say, well, wait a minute, that's not right. I wrote that song, and that's me singing it, and I totally have the rights. This is clear cut. Or, well, yeah, that's their material, but I have a fair use in this that I'm very, very comfortable with. Then you can file what's called a counter notice, and YouTube will go back to the alleged rights holder and say, hey, wait a minute. They want to file a counter notice, and then the alleged rights holder has, it's 10 to 14 days